So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. The Detroit Lions played their 7th game of NFL play this past Sunday, welcoming the Miami Dolphins to Detroit, and unfortunately, the Detroit Lions walked out with their 6th loss on the year. Falling to 1-6 after a very hard-fought loss to the Miami Dolphins, has the Detroit Lions sitting with the #1 overall pick and pretty much, at this point, sitting firmly out of playoff contention. And today, we are going to recap this Week 8 matchup. We're going to go over what happened, what was good, what was bad, why maybe this game was a step in the right direction, but also take a look at the things that very clearly need to be fixed as the Detroit Lions continue to move forward. So, with that being said, we're going to start off with this game. Of course, the Lions ended up losing this game by a score of 27-31 and lose their 4th game of the season by 7 or less points. They have now lost by 1 score or less to the 8-0 Falcons, to the 8-0 Eagles, to the 6-1 Minnesota Vikings, to the 5-3 Miami Dolphins, as well as losing a 1-score game to the division-leading Seattle Seahawks. They have played a lot of very good teams this year and lost by very, very minimal scoring, but at the same time, at some point, wins have to turn into wins, and close games have to turn into close victories. Jared Goff was not very good on the day, although he was very statistically efficient and accurate. I did not think Jared Goff was very good in this football game, and I thought that this game once again emphasized the point that Jared Goff, when you need it, when the game's on the line, when there is a big moment to be made, Jared Goff is more often than not going to step into that moment. Jared Goff on the day was 27 of 37 for 321 yards and a single touchdown. And while I will not blame the loss solely on Jared Goff, I do think he was a big part of this loss, as in the second half, he was 9 of 12, was pretty good completion percentage-wise, but only threw for 57 yards and 0 touchdowns. He did not make any big throws, did not make any big plays down the field, and when the game was on the line, when he needed to make those big throws, when he needed to be decisive and accurate down the football field, he was inaccurate and missed his throws. It's the 2nd week in a row Jared Goff has missed deep throws down the field, and even on the ones he completed, like the deep shot to Raymond, it was underthrown. It wasn't leading the wide receiver into the end zone, and Jared Goff, every single deep throw, it seems like this season, seems to leave something to be desired. Now, the running backs were okay. Jamal Williams had 10 carries for 53 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. DeAndre Swift did not have a great return to Ford Field, but did have a receiving touchdown, which is worthy of note. TJ Hawkinson, Khalif Raymond, and Amon-Ra St. Brown all had 70-plus receiving yards on the day, so Jared Goff was giving his wide receivers opportunities to make plays, and 3 of his wide receivers did have pretty good production. The Lions did start to get back on the board and did start scoring some more touchdowns, but the effort was all for naught as the defense was unable to get the stops at key times, and the Lions offense stalled heavily in the second half of play. Now looking at the defensive side of the ball, not a whole lot of really big things to note. Malcolm Rodriguez did have his best day as a Lion, did have his best day as a professional, with 7 total tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss, a pass defended, as well as a fumble recovery, while rookie Kirby Joseph forced his 2nd fumble in 2 games. Kirby Joseph is somebody that for the last 3 to 4 games, really dating back to New England, has either made a turnover, forced a turnover, or at least been in a position to do so. He dropped the interception at Dallas, he dropped an interception at New England, forced a fumble at Dallas, and now forced another fumble in back-to-back games versus the Miami Dolphins. He is somebody that has a nose for the football and is very close to getting a turnover almost every single time that he is on the field. When it's Kirby Joseph, you can almost, at this point, expect one turnover or one turnover-worthy play every single game. And for the last 2 weeks, the Lions have been able to capitalize on those productions and on those plays from Kirby Joseph. Now, Jeff Okudah, I thought, again, had a very good day. He was targeted very minimal times on the day. I only remember really one play where I'd say it was really Jeff Okudah man-on-man, and he got beat. It was a, I think, 10, 15-yard catch. It was not anything incredible, did not get beat deep. I thought Jeff Okudah, again, for the second week in a row, played a very, very strong game at the starting cornerback position. But overall, I think this game showed the Lions a lot of their flaws. I think the Lions at this point are very clear that Jared Goff is not the guy. Jared Goff has proven over the last 2 to 3 games that he cannot make the big throws when it matters. He continuously turns the ball over when the Lions need to keep the ball, when the Lions need to score. And early in the game, when everything's scripted, when everything works, Jared Goff looks like a good quarterback. Come the second half, when adjustments have to be made, when Jared Goff has to simply outplay the opposition, he very rarely has the ability to do so, right? And I think that's really becoming apparent in the Detroit Lions play style right now, as they are able to score almost at will in the first half, right? Jamal Williams had 2 touchdowns. DeAndre Swift had a receiving touchdown. Jared Goff was moving the football up and down the field with ease. And then the second half comes along, adjustments are made, and Jared Goff, when everything goes a little off script, when they have to change up the play calling from what the game plan was all week, he cannot adjust to make those plays. And I think that's very, very evident watching the last 3 Detroit Lions games. Now, I think Aaron Glenn is also a big issue. Aaron Glenn was an up-and-coming defensive coordinator, somebody with good ideas, somebody with young, innovative ideas for the defensive side of the ball, and somebody that players really, really liked. Aaron Glenn is not working. Aaron Glenn, in my opinion, is calling plays very much like he is coaching for the Miami Dolphins, right? He is calling defensive plays as if he has 2 all-pro cornerbacks, as if he has Javon Holland and Xavier Howard in his secondary. He is calling plays as if he has an elite secondary, and he does not. He's calling plays like he has elite playmakers on the defense, and he does not. That is not solely on Aaron Glenn, right? I think the positional coaches have to step up as well, but I think Aaron Glenn is coaching as if he has all-pro players, when Aaron Glenn very clearly does not have all-pro players. And I have a lot of thoughts about this coaching staff, where players are, where players should be, and where this team defensively, and just as far as talent progression, should be this year with the Detroit Lions, with their rookies, with their second and third-year players. But I think that's a video for a separate day. As of right now, I will leave it at the fact that Aaron Glenn needs to change something. Clearly, the players are not playing at an all-pro caliber level, and Aaron Glenn last year had the 31st ranked defense, and this year has the 32nd ranked defense, and they are significantly worse off this year than they were last year. Aaron Glenn's defense is not forcing turnovers. It is not forcing incompletions. It is not forcing, 3 and outs. It is not, forcing even field goals at this point more times than not. Aaron Glenn's defense is not working. So Aaron Glenn either needs to change up his defense, play to his player strengths more, and really try to protect some of the holes that he is showing on the defensive side of the ball, or somebody else has to step up and do it. Because right now, Aaron Glenn is not coaching this team to win. Aaron Glenn's defense is not putting this team in a position to win. When you score 27 points, when you score 35 points on the offensive side of the ball, you as the offense and you as the football team should be expecting to win that football game. But Aaron Glenn's defense, more times than not, is preventing the Lions from doing so. Now, with that being said, I think that there are some excuses for Aaron Glenn, right? I do think that injuries is a fair thing to say early in the season. I do think that rookies, inexperience, is a fair thing to criticize for as a defense against Aaron Glenn, but you can't sit here and pretend like the Lions have not tried to address the defensive side of the ball. You cannot sit here and say, okay, the Lions have given Aaron Glenn no help, they've given him no players, they've given him no playmakers. Aaron Glenn does not have superstars, does not have all pros. He does not have the worst on-paper defense in the NFL. The Lions over the past 2 years have gotten him Aiden Hutchinson, Ali McNeil, and Josh Pascal in the first top 100 picks on the defensive line. They have drafted him Kirby Joseph. They have drafted him Kirby Joseph. They have drafted him Malcolm Rodriguez. They have drafted him multiple players on the defensive side of the ball that have become at least starters, if not really, really good players over the past season and a half. There is some talent on this roster, and when you look around this roster, I truly don't think this should be the 32nd worst defense in the NFL. I do not think this is the very worst defense in the NFL on paper, because on paper the Lions have talent. On paper, a pass rush and a defensive line of Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, Josh Pascal, John Kaminsky, Julian Okwara, and Isaiah Buggs is not a bad defensive line on paper, and that's a defensive line you should be able to win with, right? Linebacker is not anything incredible, but if the Lions defense is doing anything right this season, it is Kelvin Shepard coaching the linebackers to play above where they should be. Malcolm Rodriguez, Derek Barnes, Chris Ward are all playing way better than they should be at this point in their careers or at this point in time for the Lions. And the secondary, yes, the secondary is having some problems, as we just saw Aubrey Pleasant get fired for this game, but even the secondary has talent. Jeff Okudah has been playing very well. We saw the talent of Amani Oruwari last year. We've seen the talents of Kirby Joseph. And of course, Tracy Walker is hurt, but Kirby Joseph has stepped into that role very well, so I don't think that's a big excuse for him either. Honestly, the coaching staff has to step up on the defensive side of the ball, and there is going to be a whole separate video tomorrow or the next day talking about this defense, how they need to improve, and what coaches need to start coaching better or coaches changes that need to be made. But with that being said, getting back to the Miami Dolphins game, the Lions were outplayed. The Lions were competitive. The Lions were the better team in the first half. They forced the turnover. They got the early scores. They scored early and they scored often. They were aggressive when they needed to be, and they were cautious when they should have been. It was a good coaching job from Dan Campbell. It was a good coaching job from Ben Johnson. I think that the Lions are at a point where their quarterback is not good enough to win them football games. I think they're at a point where their defense is not good enough to force the turnovers to win them football games. And I do think the Lions are still lacking that star power right now on both sides of the football at football's most important positions. But this game was a step in the right direction. The Lions were more competitive. The Lions did have within 4 points of a playoff team and of a 5-3 football team. And I'm not saying that it's good enough. I'm not saying that it is, where it should be. I'm not saying that it should not be better at this point. But I do think this game was another step in the right direction. And I think going into a game versus a Green Bay team that doesn't have a lot of confidence right now, I think going into a latter half of our schedule, I do think the Lions should start winning. I think the Lions are talented enough. I think that they have enough players. They should win at least a few more games this season. 7 seems like a pretty high number at this point, but I still believe that at a bare minimum, the Lions should win 6 games or coaching changes need to be made. Right? At this point, the Lions have had 2 years of a rebuild. If they cannot be at 6 wins by year 2 of a rebuild, I think changes need to be made on the coaching side of the roster and of the team, but that is a whole nother video for a whole nother day. So with that being said, I will leave you with this. The Miami Dolphins game was a step in the right direction. The Lions are by no means at the finish line. The Lions are no means anywhere near where they need to be as of right now, and I think the holes are very clear on this roster and the problems of this team are very, very clear, but I think it's getting better. And I think the Lions are continuing to stay competitive versus a lot of playoff teams and a lot of teams that will be playing late into January and potentially in February. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions!